important nutrient for the hemoglobin in our red blood cells. So in order to absorb that iron, we talked about vitamin C. Some really good, rich vitamin C vegetables and fruits include oranges, include, a little bit in tomatoes, include bell peppers. Those are really good foods to add to your plate when you're eating high iron foods like beans, like certain other vegetables. Um, when it comes to the nutrient choline, this is another nutrient that's important that we've talked about. So you can get choline, which is in large amounts in eggs. So if you're eating eggs, that's really good for getting your choline, particularly if you're pregnant. It's something that you have increased need of. But the interesting thing is that if you get choline from animal sources, there's something that when we eat it, our good bacteria in our gut break down that animal source of choline, and then they create something called TMAO. So TMAO, if you have heart failure or you have that condition or heart conditions, TMAO can unfortunately make your conditions worse or trigger an event. But God is so good that in plant-based sources of choline, actually, when our gut bacteria, when we eat those foods, our good bacteria do not make any TMAO. So that's a way to get important nutrients without the negative side effects. And these are just some things that we're starting to find about the advantages of plant-based foods. Am I saying don't eat eggs at all? Don't eat animal foods? Well, if you're in a place where you don't have good nutrition, I'm not saying to do that. But if you have options between plant-based and animal-based foods, what we're finding is the more you can do more plants, the better your health will be. So here are some, reiterations of some of those important things regarding lifestyle. Smoking can increase the difficulties with absorbing certain things. So we don't just live in a vacuum of just eating healthy, but we have to talk about lifestyle. I had there a recipe. We'll skip through that. For those who believe in the Bible, this is a good example, I think, of the importance of what I'm mentioning as far as nutrition over a dietary preference. So Noah, he was a person who, in the beginning, they had fully plant-based diets, we believe, from the Bible. And Noah, he found himself in a land that had no more plants because there was a flood. And when he came out, no more plants, no more food available. And from the Bible account, he was told to start eating animals. And so that just shows, even if you're hundreds of years old and you've been eating vegan all your life, if the food is not available to give yourself the nutrients, we want to prioritize nutrients over a diet. But when you can do plants, we should prioritize the plants. So then going forward, right, there's some other things regarding heart disease that are important. Family history, those are some things we can't change. Genetics, those are some things we can't change. Some people, innocent people suffer in this world. You may have cholesterol, a familial genetic disease, where your cholesterol is extremely high no matter what you do. I'm not telling you to take away your medications, but I am telling you that the more we can get plants in our life, the better your health can be. I'll go forward to another point here that I want to highlight. If you have time, look up, there's this, I don't know if you can guess how old the person on the left is, but she's in her about 70s, and her husband is about the same age. Can anyone guess what was the difference between their diet and lifestyle from the person on the left who's married to the person on the right? The
Oh my
person on the
goodness.
right would go to the store, the grocery store, and they say, "Hey, is that your daughter?" And he would say, "No, that's my wife." The only difference was the woman on the left was eating plant-based, trying to eat them, growing her foods in her backyard. It's a couple in Florida. You can look on YouTube, but sometimes the proof is in the pudding. And there are athletes who are now trying to increase their plant-based intake and seeing results there. So um, for the sake of time, let's just go to the next tip, right? So if we talk about maximizing the nutrients, I'm not here to beat you over the head about your diet. Maximize your nutrients, get it from wherever you are. But if you're in a place with alternatives and plants, please get that. Next tip you can do is minimize the toxins. And we kind of talked about the smoking as a key point. So it may be surprising to you, but it actually was the case that in the 1960s, there were commercials with doctors using cigarettes. Smoking, it was said to be healthy in the 1800s, but then they found it later through evaluation and science that it's actually not healthy for you. So sometimes it takes time for the truth to come out. So I don't want us, for those of us in the room who are a little bit skeptical about things and we put our nose in the air, like, I'm waiting for the science to say it. Sometimes the science is late. And so if there's a principle I could leave with you also is the precautionary principle. We may not always have the evidence that we want for certain behaviors, but if there's enough concern, you may want to consider avoiding it. So what's one thing that we can consider avoiding besides tobacco? And, there's a lot more information out there about alcohol now. Here's one thing: coffee. May surprise you, but coffee, it causes palpitations. It can borrow from your future reserves gained from sleep. There are substances that are common in fruits and vegetables and coffee that sometimes they can find actually is negative for your health. I won't go into all of its effects, but they're starting to find sometimes some conflicting data about coffee. So that's one thing I want to encourage you without going into details about it. It is one of the things that cardiologists list as far as arrhythmia producing agents. They won't come out right out and say, like, don't drink any coffee, because sometimes it's conflicting studies. But I do want to encourage you that if you're trying to have more energy, trying to do more in the day, like you can see here in the picture, there are other options to increase your energy, like the foods we talked about earlier. This is a picture of some public health things that they were doing back then. I don't think I'll have time to get into that joke, but
Oh, you have time. Go ahead. You go for it.
okay. Well, just on the order of the factor that we're talking about eliminating things from our life that can bring up toxins. So in the 1800s, it was common for the streets outside to actually be filled with horse and animal feces. So the feces would dry, and then the wind would carry those dry particles through the air, and contamination and disease would then run rampant. But thankfully, due to education, hygienic practices, it's a far distant past that we've, had this happening. Now it's just a joke. But now we find that there are toxins actually in our homes, actually in our buildings. And so if we can open our windows, just literally cracking your window open, allowing ventilation in our homes decreases the exposure we have to all these toxins in our rooms, in our carpets, things like that. Some of the fire retardants that are on some of our couches, some of the things that decrease our risk if there was a fire in our homes, also have these things that can we're finding are actually harmful, PFAS and other endocrine disrupting chemicals. So am I telling you to throw away all your furniture? No. But what I am telling you is just crack that little window, and that'll help with ventilation. Another quote from that book I was talking about just talks about how, many people make careful provision for their plants, and they, try to make things become more beautiful, but they don't, for their own lives. They know that their plants need oxygen, but for their own lives, their own health, they won't open up the window. So, this was something that was scary in the 1800s. They were concerned that cold would harm their health. Now we know that we need oxygen, we need that fresh air. Open up that window. If you're on the first floor and you're going to be in Brooklyn, New York, like I am, you may want to avoid that. I could tell you a funny story about it. I won't. But if you're on the second floor and it's a safe place, crack that window or crack your door while you're awake and it's safe. This is just another slide that's going to talk about fashions of the time. There are a lot of fashions that were rampant in the 1800s, and there were clothings that would kind of constrict certain parts of the body and decrease their ability to breathe. This isn't such a big problem now, but even just wearing tight objects and things like that, that can just limit our ability to have good circulation. So whatever you can do to improve your circulation, again, that blood is going everywhere. please do that. You know, if you have a wound in the hospital, we will be careful to give you a mattress that equalizes the pressure that's going to each part of your body, just so we can have improved circulation to those places, whether they have wounds or not. How much more can we do with our own bodies, making sure that we get good circulation? Um, the last thing I'll just share with you is temperance. So we talked about maximizing our nutrients and decreasing our toxins as much as possible and taking those precautions, not just waiting for the science to tell us, you know, to tie our shoelaces, but being precaution, exercising precaution. The last thing I want to share, and I've already alluded to it, is temperance. Temperance is defined as moderation in all things healthful and total abstinence from all things harmful. So that's moderation in all things healthful, but abstinence in all things harmful. So when it comes to the life-giving blood going throughout our bodies, right, this principle is also true. Exercise is important, but what we're finding is moderate exercise is better. The more exercise we do, the longer our life, the better our quality of life. But even when they're looking at how long your life can be prolonged, they found that moderate, not doing too much, not too intense, is better for lengthening your life. Um, we're also finding that 57 to 72% of those who had clots were those who were inactive, those persons who have clots in their lungs. So immobility, if you have a surgery or a trauma or a fracture, that can increase your risk of lung clots. And it's the same thing we'll experience, or we'll increase the risk of that if we're just inactive, not doing anything. So if you're studying for a long time, or if you're finding that you have a desk job, every 25 minutes, take a short physical break. Or after an hour, take a 5-minute walk. Or if you're in a long flight, just take a standing break every hour. On the other hand, if you're thinking that, man, I need to just, take a break and maybe I should just relax, other things that we're finding is those who are working too hard. Overwork, we found that if you're overworking, 86 to 88% increased risk of developing a stroke. So again, am I telling you not to work at all, not to do too much? No, sometimes they will come, for the parents or for the people who are doing emergencies, people who are in the hospital. There will come times where you may have to overwork for a moment, but decreasing that risk, go back to being, getting some recreation and getting that sleep in, making up for that time where you have to overextend your energy. So 55 hours a week is the sweet spot that they found. 50 hours is even better. But 55 hours a week, if you're working more than that, that's not ideal. And they're even finding for physicians that, if we can just cut down the duty hours, it improves their health, improves their decision making, particularly for the specialties that have a lot of decisions and thinking to make, rather than the specialties that have a lot of muscle memory, like surgical procedures, etc. Another way to practice temperance that we can all do is not eating after a certain point. The recommendation is 4 to 5 hours before going to sleep is the best. That allows your body to digest that meal as best as it can, because what are you going to do with food? You're going to use it for energy. But if you eat late, when are you going to use that energy, right? So it just sits there, as it were. So our stomachs need a break too and rest from the day's labor, not just our brains. So the hormone leptin, it actually tells us when we stop eating for the day, when to stop eating for the day. That hormone is contingent and dependent on our sleep and our rest, etc. So if you're hungry at night, one good tip is to try and get some drinking of some water, and that can kind of help with that time. So that's a tip. I don't want to go into too much. I'd rather leave some time for questions. In summary, here are the top 3 things that I want to just leave with you, reinforcing that, you can have better heart health and blood health by maximizing your nutrients. You can minimize those unnecessary toxins. And one of the reasons we're having better heart outcomes nowadays is even just by that small change of making smoking less popular, making it more difficult to smoke, or making it, more aware, making more awareness about the harm in smoking. Still super addictive. It's one of the most hard things to stop doing, but it's so much better for your health. And then practicing temperance. I think I'm going to go ahead and stop there. Any questions, any comments, any reflections, anything?
Thank you, Dr. Jallo. That was really very interesting. I have a few questions, and I know that the group might have some questions too. Um, so one of the questions I have, it's you know, as far as the heart, cardiovascular issues, what type of what is the profile of people coming in, that you see the most? I'm talking age, I'm talking gender, I'm talking, lifestyle. I mean, what you're seeing out there a lot in the
Mm.
hospital right now?
Yeah, particularly when I was on the heart service, it may surprise you, but I actually saw, unfortunately, a variety of ages. And the reason that that's becoming a little bit more alarming is we're actually finding that heart disease and heart attacks and heart failure, whereas it used to be thought of as particularly heart failure, a condition of those who are in their older age, maybe their 60s, their 70s, we're finding that it's becoming more and more common in younger age groups, their 40s. Um, for patients who, maybe they are farm workers, they have a lot of exercise built into their daily schedule. I'm not seeing those persons who are as active, but, the diet sometimes they're asking, after a heart attack, is there anything I can do? Is there anything I can change? Um, sometimes the diet isn't as optimal, and even in the hospital, when a heart healthy diet is recommended, sometimes they want to be changed back to something else. So why wait till you have a heart condition to try and all of a sudden change your taste buds? What we'd recommend and what we'd encourage is try to make some of these changes now. Try and increase your physical activity. Try and increase your plant-based intake. Don't just take in, if you're going to eat, animal products, try to do it in moderation. But if you can go fully plant-based and get all your nutrients intelligently, do that. Um, those would be, I think, the biggest things that I'd say are happening. And of course, if you have a primary care doctor, when they're checking those lipid labs, if you're noticing that those numbers are pretty high, they really are trying to help you so that you don't end up in the hospital in under the cardiology service. So I say, the cholesterol, the high blood pressure, the diabetes, the exercise, the diet, those would be some of the bigger concerns, the more common concerns. And age is important, but unfortunately, it's scary. Age is not the only the older age is not the only group that's getting hit.
So what? Just for the audience, what type of metrics or values are we talking that you say, okay, if I do a regular lab test, what are the ones that I should be looking into? And
Mm,
saying, okay, this I need to be aware and concerned about.
yeah, great questions. Even just things without getting your blood tested, even just your blood pressure. If you have a doctor, and if you don't, it might be a good time to just get your blood pressure checked, because it's the silent killer. It's a silent thing that can impact your body. It can impact your blood vessels in your eyes. It can impact your kidneys. Um, so getting your blood pressure checked, if there's a health and wellness event that they're checking blood pressure, check it. If it's less than 140, less than 130, and less than 120, those would be good targets depending on if you already have high blood pressure. If it's 120 over 80 or less, that's the most ideal. Some people who are very athletic, it's going to be way lower than that. Some people who are not as athletic, maybe not as much, but less than 120 over 80 is the ideal. Um, for your cholesterol numbers, you might already be on a medication addressing that, but there's certain cholesterol and triglyceride numbers that we want you to be under. The lower the better, except for your HDL. If it could be over 40, that would be the most ideal. But the lower your LDL, the lower some of these other things like triglycerides, the better. Um, Other things that we look at, your blood sugar numbers. Diabetes, although it's not a disease of the heart exactly, it increases your risk for so many problems, including heart disease. So if you have diabetes, now might be a good time to try and get your blood sugars, as close to 100 as possible, or not just your fasting morning blood sugars, but your A1C, trying to get that below 7. It is possible for some people, it may be just a matter of weight loss, or, losing 10% weight loss, for example, or it just depends on where you are right now. And I think the best way to not just overgeneralize with giving numbers here would be to check in with your physician. And even though for some people that might be scary, physicians are more and more offering and encouraging lifestyle changes. So get to know your numbers with your doctor, and they'll know your risk profile and your conditions and take into account some of those variables when they talk through your numbers. But these are just some general numbers that I'm throwing out here.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Anyone else have other questions about the presentation or anything related to the topic to Dr. Jallo?
I do have a question. Thank you so much, by the way, for giving this information to us. But can you go a little bit over more about the iron um, that you can you elaborate more on how to absorb or how to like the iron um, nutrients that we need so much in our blood?
Yeah, absolutely. Different people have different taste buds. So it may be useful to, Google high iron foods. But things like beans, things like, certain vegetables have a high amount of iron. But vitamin C, we're finding for plant-based sources, vitamin C increases your absorption. So there are items in plant foods that decrease your absorption of the iron or make it more difficult for, I should say, maybe nutrients in general. Sometimes there can be difficulty absorbing some of those nutrients, but boiling, cooking, that helps with absorbing things, even like vitamin A from the foods. But things like fats, you're eating fats with your vitamin A sources like carrots, etc. That helps with absorption. In the case of iron, to be specific, the more vitamin C in your meal, the actual meal, the more iron you will absorb from that meal. So we're not saying, eat a huge vitamin C pill, at the beginning of the morning, and then you're good for the rest of the day whenever you eat iron. We're talking, in an ideal world, getting your vitamin C source from your foods. So if you're eating I don't know, you're eating your oatmeal, which has, iron and maybe some, dried raisins, that iron that you want to absorb, maybe have half an orange or an orange. That has almost, I think, maybe 50 or more of the number that we want for the iron. If you're able to get, I believe, is it 50 milligrams of iron, 50 or more milligrams of iron, I'd have to double check that at a meal, you're getting a good amount of vitamin C to be able to absorb what you're eating. I'd have to double check the numbers, but if you're looking for targets, I'd say eat as much iron as you can at your meals, or make sure you get enough iron for the day. If you need to talk with a nutritionist to plan well, that's a good idea, or looking up iron-rich foods. But looking for those vitamin C-rich foods. Tomatoes have a decent amount of iron, but if you want, the high hitters, the heavy hitters like broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, if you can have them raw or cooked, raw or steamed, the iron is preserved better than if you cook them, because the vitamin C is diminished by cooking. So this might be a part of your meal that you want to be raw or steamed. If you're eating a meal with fruits, then pineapple, papaya, those types of things, mangoes. Eating that with your oatmeal. If you're eating the beans or tofu, having that with some lightly steamed broccoli, etc. Making it taste good. That would kind of help, but it's based on your food preference and your taste buds. And if you need to retrain those taste buds, it only takes 21 days. But if there's already foods on those lists, you can kind of play around with it. I hope I answered your question. If not, please let me know.
You did. Thank you. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Thank you, doctor, for a very refreshing presentation. I have a very simple question. You talked about coffee. Would you put tea as well in the same category?
Yeah, so that's a little bit of a volatile topic when you talk about people's tea and coffee, especially in the hospital. Let me say this. The studies that are out there for coffee and tea, unfortunately, it's not like some medications where we do these randomized controlled trials and trying to track people's foods and things like that is sometimes hard. And so in any given decade, you'll find some data pro and negative in favor of certain things. But yes, to answer your question, I would say, if you can avoid the green and black tea for reasons that I can't jump into fully right now, I say avoid it. If you have health conditions, there are certain health conditions that possibly it might be helpful. And then there are some health conditions, like even type 1 diabetes. I was reading an article one time that, even for young people, it could be really harmful. So I just say, from the standpoint of prevention and precaution and just some other things that I have from that book that I was mentioning, I just recommend, trying to limit it as much as you can. And for the energy that you're looking for, try and get it in other ways. So even the timing of eating that we talked about is going to actually improve your energy. The sleep that people are depriving themselves of to get to use the coffee to replace things. There's so much that if you could make sleep into a pill and sell it, you could probably be a billionaire. So if you're just using coffee to keep yourself awake, well, you're missing all the other things that sleep would bring. And so I know it's hard, so I don't try and harp on it too much without going into detail and talking about it, which we can do on the side maybe afterward. But yeah, I just recommend using other substances. Now, are there good teas out there? Absolutely. Chamomile, other things. I'm not trying to make a blanket statement here, but to answer your question, sometimes we use substitutes instead of getting the things we need from the more ideal sources. So precautionary principle on that one, but you can find a couple other people who will disagree with me, so that's okay. Any other questions? Good question.
Thank you. That was a good question. Anybody else have any other questions?
I do have a question. Can you make a suggestion for someone who would have heart failure, but the blood pressure is low, cholesterol is low, triglycerides are low, all the numbers are all good, but there's a heart failure situation. Can you make a suggestion for that?
Yeah, that's tough. Yeah, like I said, innocent people in this world suffer too. The person who's eating broccoli and exercising, gets hit with, lung cancer. This world is not our home. I don't know what to specifically say to specific situations because I don't have the specific details in front of me. But with the information you just gave me, it can hurt to go on a heart-healthy diet, increasing the fruits and vegetables, like I said. Some of the information that I'm looking at is looking at just the microbiome, the good bacteria we have in our gut, and how it's impacted in heart failure. And guess what foods really help our microbiome? It's those plant-based foods. They do a great job of helping our body dealing with, if you already have heart failure, just the increased fluid and all the things that come with that, and increasing the likelihood of bad bacteria marginating into the blood and causing havoc. So, out of the limited information that I have there to be as careful as I can with medical care, I would just say, encouraging those heart healthy foods would be the best thing I would say. Exercise, in particular, if it's heart failure with reduced ejection fraction, if you can do cardiac rehab under supervision, that's been found to help with heart failure. Other things, just if you find your moods are down, if you have a religious faith, now's a good time to plug into that. If you already are plugged in, just in keeping yourself encouraged with Bible verses, or if you're of another faith, your family, your religion, all those things we find impact your quality and quantity of life. I'd say talk with your doctor. I'm not a cardiologist. I'm a general internist, but, I'm going to graduate in a couple of months, but that is an interest of mine. And those are some recommendations I can stand by, and that the literature I believe stands by. But, talk with your doctor, and they'd have the best ideas, I would say. And they'd have your specifics in front of them,
Thank you.
or that person's specific.
Do you see patients that come to the hospital with like a heart condition, for example, that they've returned frequently after one event? Is that something that with other conditions back, or is it something that once it gets repaired, then the patient is good and doesn't return back to the hospital for
Unfortunately, to be transparent with you, it's an unfortunate thing when we see a patient who keeps coming to the hospital with, now instead of one vessel, it's another vessel on the heart that's a little bit more occluded, and then another one. Or then there's an intervention, and then whether not due to not taking medications, or even if they are under medications, things kind of progress. So even if you are getting those medical interventions, things can still recur, unfortunately. And again, innocent people do suffer, but I do believe with some of the information out there that there are changes that can be made. So yes, unfortunately, we do see that. Especially the cardiologist, I'm sure would vouch for that.
Excellent.
Well, it's been a pleasure being with you all, and thank you again for your questions and your insights, and thank you for what you all have here too. It's a great thing, this group, to be able to support each other in making the best of choices. And thank you again, Lifeline and Ramon, for letting me be here.
Yes. Thank you again for your time. I know you have a very busy schedule. It's hard to get to you, so I appreciate your having the time to come to this workshop and help us out. And by the way, I was born in Brooklyn too, Brooklyn, New York. So that's also something common there. We got to talk about that later. So
I probably think that when he said to not leave the window open is because maybe someone decided to enter and
Yeah.
see what was inside of your apartment or house.
yeah. So anyways, thank you very much for your time, and we wish you the best as you go. You're gonna go back to New York. Is that right? Pretty soon here.
Yes, that's the eventual goal.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
So we have some people over there, so maybe you see them along while you're over there. So thank you very much. We are going to give closure to this workshop in we want you to continue to be engaged with us. Our website at lifeline.org. We shortened the name so that you could find it easier at lifeline.org. Has our, some information about the workshops. You can download our apps. Our app also has the information. This workshop will be recorded and uploaded to the app, so you could see it and share it with your friends. Also share with your friends kind of the app, so they can just get some benefit of what we're trying to do here to just assist people where they're at. And every Thursday we have a workshop, and we are going to start bringing more people like Dr. Jallo into the conversation to bring a different things that we haven't been able to touch. So thank you very much for your time. And we also are having a 7-day program, DYH, and that DYH program is starting every Sunday. It starts every Sunday, but you have to sign up 5 days before. Maybe there's somebody that wants to do some of these programs, and it's amazing. I would like to we could probably share it in different social media platforms, but the results of people's life, the changes, is just unbelievable. In just a 7-day changes, just making changes for 7 days is just unbelievable. So anyways, I just want to let you go. Hope you guys have a great night, and those that are in the other side of the world, have a good day. And we'll see you next Thursday, God willing, at 7:30. Unless anybody has any other questions.
Thank you so much for
Yes.
all these wonderful workshops.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Have a
Thank
great
you.
night,
Good night.
guys. Take care. Thank you, Ahmed. Okay, we finished 5 minutes on time.
You didn't pray.
I prayed.
No?
Al final,
Oh, ya que- que
yo
sí.
oré.
What did you pray, Gabriel?
You on my prayer. Maybe
Y
I prayed.
eso está grabando en Facebook.
No, I close. Facebook está delay por 20 segundos, 20 algo minutos. So it's still here, you see. Pero no
Into account some of those variables when they talk through your numbers, but these are just some general numbers that I'm throwing out here.
Thank you. Anyone else have other questions? De todas, la mejor que se ve eres tú. De todas, la mejor que se ve en cámara eres tú. Sí, de verdad que sí. ¿Qué? Quien me llamó fue los de que hacen los health enthusiasts, estos que hacen los domingos que se reúnen, los de Chicago. Alguien llamó de ahí, tú sabes que cuando hay gente así, Natural Health Planners.
Mira, yo creo que la que me llamó esa sí fue Maribel. Cuando yo busqué el nombre, sí, que se llama Calderón. No tenía Calderón.
La llamo ahora. La llamo ahora.
A ver.
Please leave your message for 773.
¿Eso usted estaba molestando por la comida?
¿Ah?
¿Eso usted estaba molestando por la comida?
Sí.
Oh my God. Yo me tardé porque me cogió Kenneth, me cogió su fan, me cogió Miguelina. Y me tuve que salir diciendo que tenía que hacer algo. Vi a Clemencia, no sé qué Clemencia no me cogió. Pues Clemencia a veces estaba ocupado. Pero me tardé.